The wristwatch with a stopwatch. The timekeeper for a life of action. The chronograph stands for sports and adventure, and at Panerai, those qualities are second nature. Panerai didn't start out making chronographs. In fact, of the one example it did historically create back in the 1940s, only a prototype is known to exist. And if you were setting out to design a chronograph now, Panerai's iconic cushion-shaped case with its large security lock protecting the winding crown probably isn't the template you'd pick. After all, that lock resides where we'd normally find a chronograph's controls. And yet, with no little ingenuity, Panerai in the modern era has become a producer of beautiful, high-performance chronographs, ideal for the sporting life. Security lock and all. Take the 44mm Luminor Chrono. Cased in stainless steel with an elegant all-purpose bracelet and a blue dial that you might see as offering a rather nautical edge. This watch is as suited to a day's action-packed sailing, timing your tacks and jibes as you go, as it is for sundowners in the yacht club afterwards. The Luminor Chrono is a watch made for fast-paced situations, and as such, clarity is key, with those historic sandwich dials that enable luminous material to shine through the cut-out numerals and markers. It's also self-winding, with a chronograph movement made by Panerai. When the chronograph mechanism is activated, the subdial on the right marks off elapsed minutes, and a large sweep hand for recording the seconds can be read against a tachymetric scale encircling the dial. That's a traditional display for calculating speed over a fixed distance. Once used by pilots or racing drivers, it's a reminder that chronographs were the smartwatches of their day. On the left-hand subdial is the running seconds, and take note of the two pushers used for operating the chronograph. You can start and then stop, timing with the bottom button, while the top button resets the chronograph. Their position here is unusual. Normally you'll find these on the right of the case, but Panerai rethought the entire mechanism, switching them to the left to ensure a balanced design. The Luminor Chrono is an elegant integration of a chronograph into Panerai's familiar dive watch design. But for a truly elevated example of chronograph watchmaking, the brand has produced the Luminor Chrono Monopulsante GMT Blue Notte. If that's a name that sounds rarefied, then so is the watch. This is a limited edition of just 200 pieces. It's a true collector's item. The case is made from high-tech, scratch-proof black ceramic rather than steel. An ideal sports watch material that gives the timepiece its sleek, sporty attitude, in contrast to that lavish satin finish of the dial in midnight blue. Once again, we have the chronograph timing indications, but there's a lot more going on. In addition to the central, arrow-headed GMT hand that indicates the hour in a second time zone, there's also an unconventional linear display showing what's left in the tank from the watch's enormous energy reserve. When fully wound, this watch will run for 8 days. The most exotic element, though, is the small, single chronograph button on the left of the case, the so-called Monopulsante, or mono pusher, which will start, stop, and reset the chronograph mechanism on its own. It's a more unusual and intricate style of chronograph to engineer, but it has the benefit of an elegant, unfussy case silhouette. With its multiple functions, complex horology and opulent finish, this is the sports watch elevated to high art. And when you turn the watch over, you see just how much firepower Panerai can muster. The Caliber P2004 is a magnificent hand-wound chronograph engine, whose bold architecture reflects the sturdy, resilient style of Panerai watchmaking. Notice the column wheel, a sophisticated device that makes for a smoother and more precise chronograph operation from that single button. It's the kind of thing that separates the great chronographs from the merely good. And Panerai's chronographs are great chronographs. Lateral thinking, creativity, and sheer Italian verve has turned the maker of historic dive watches into a maker of modern sports watches of style and considerable substance.